Before Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks take on Real Madrid in Spain, what have the Mavericks gotten right? What have they gotten wrong when it comes to Luka so far in his career? It's going to be a doozy. On today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. Where the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day and to comment anything below. Let us know in the comment section, what's one thing the Mavs have done right or they've done wrong when it comes to Luka Doncic in his career so far. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself today with a Jase case, providing you the personal supply of 5 antibiotics to treat 50-plus infections, and instructions on all of it. Get yours today at jasemedical.com, J-A-S-E medical.com. And joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, contributor at Mavs.com, the Real Madrid Madre, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Nick, are you watching? We haven't talked about this, but are you watching Love is Blind?
I would have never really watched these shows, but my wife and I got like a bunch of drinks and watched the first episode and laughed a ton. So we have
episode of the first season.
I watched the first episode of season 5. No, the most recent one.
Oh, the most recent one. Okay.
Yeah.
I have so many thoughts. I almost want to start like a Raccoon Squad Locked On, like
do it in the subtext. Do it in subtext.
Let's have thoughts because Milton, I think, is incredible, but there's this guy named
the
Uche
Rocks guy.
there. Yeah, the geologist, super tall. He's like 6'7", super cool dude. But there's this guy named Uche, could be the worst person on reality TV I've ever seen. I can't stand him. If you like Uche, do not leave a comment. Just exit out, and there's a Rockets show you can go watch.
Through episode 1, he has told everybody everything they want to hear. Every single person so far. That's all. That's the only opinion I've got on him, is that he just tells.
Speaking of relationships, let's talk about Luka Doncic.
Yeah, today we're going to get into Luka Doncic. The Mavericks are in Spain. They're going to play Real Madrid today. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, I'll have a post-game episode out for you on that. But we wanted to do what the Mavericks have done right and what the Mavericks have done wrong so far with Luka Doncic, because we're coming off of the season where Luka was the most frustrated we'd ever seen. And there are at least rumblings or thoughts or rumors or whatever that Luka was frustrated with the Mavericks and with the organization. And there's been a bunch of things that have happened. The Mavericks, this has not been a smooth sailing ship. They had the Porzingis trade, Rick Carlisle's gone, Jason Kidd's in, Donnie Nelson's gone, Nico Harrison's in, now this Casey Smith thing. Like, there's just all kinds of stuff that has happened with the Dallas Mavericks and throughout Luka's tenure. And I was curious what we think has gone right and what we think has gone wrong, especially with decisions the Mavericks have made throughout Luka's tenure. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the Casey Smith thing in this as well. But yeah, let's just go back and forth. And I want to start with one that's a positive. Okay, let's start good.
I was going to do a zoom. Can we do just a zoom out real quick of Luka's career, and then let's land on
Can you
this.
just say the thing though?
Hey, one more thing.
Next time,
I
don't
thought-
wait till it's 3 seconds left to talk.
Oh, it's so good.
I thought you were going to go more into it. I just want to set up this way real quick. Luka comes over. He is this prodigy in Europe, and he comes over. He's coming into the draft.
Going back to his birth, like going way back.
So Sasha, no, they met on this bridge, and then anyway, Mavs and Hawks make that trade. It's draft night. There's so much stuff around him and DeAndre Ayton, this draft, and different players at the top there.
Wes Matthews almost held it all up.
God, the Wes Matthews, Kent Bazemore stuff. We did a pod right after that. Go back and listen to it. But that was it was a night that changed the franchise, for forever, because this previous regime, I think this is important to note too, of Donnie Nelson, Tony Ronzoni, those guys, that front office that had kind of not really found him, but like started the relationships from the Mavericks, front with Luka, his camp, and all of that at such a young age. They obviously were all in on Luka Doncic. They make the trade. It happens draft night. Luka comes in. He's played 5 seasons now in the NBA. In those 5 seasons, he's been 4-time All-NBA first team. He won the Rookie of the Year. He's been to the playoffs three times, right? Missed the first year, missed last year. In those 3 times, the first one was the bubble, so he went through the bubble and everything too. He's went through 2 head coaches now, 2 front offices, and 2 superstar sidekick trades now. So there you go. This is Luka Doncic's like career in this 5-year span. To Nick's point, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened, and I don't think it's all wrong, but there's definitely some things the Mavericks I think have gotten right, but there are definitely some things that I know some people are already in the comments like, dude, they got this wrong at the same time.
Well, and I'm sure there's a bunch of free Luka Doncic comments that in any comment section that includes Luka at any point in the Mavericks. But I want to start with something that they've gotten right. This Real Madrid game, you just see it. The Mavs put out a compilation of his day that he just went through when they landed, and he got an award for his for being an ambassador. They did a practice.
These are not in order, by the way. These
are gonna be totally random. They're not in chronological or anything. We're just bringing stuff up. The Real Madrid game, I think that they decided to do. They went out of their way to do an international trip to go to 2 places. The first team ever to do 2 international trips, 2 international games in a preseason. This is not normal. No one's ever done this before. And so they go to Real Madrid. And one of the reasons that they were able to do Real Madrid is that they did Abu Dhabi. That was the tax that they had to pay, is to do the Abu Dhabi game. And then they got to go to Real Madrid. But they went out of their way and did all this so that Luka could go back and play there. And in that video they posted today, he's beaming. He is the happiest I'd seen him, I don't know, since the first FIBA World Cup game that we saw when he was having fun. He looked really happy being there, being able to be an ambassador, being back, all that. And I think that this game that they've done is a really big gesture. And I hope he takes it that way. And I hope that that's, a thing that Luka takes to heart. It's like, hey, they did this for me.
Yeah. They're valuing of what Luka is the most passionate about when it comes to both Slovenia and Madrid and his time at Real Madrid is definitely a big win from their point. And that goes from a bigger thing like this that has been in the works for years now. It feels like Cuban was talking about this years ago of hey, I want us to go over there and play Real Madrid in a preseason game. But so they're going to Madrid, the whole team's going, they're playing this whole game, but it's basically just like a Luka homecoming thing.
Yeah.
But they're going there for Luka. So then but there's also all the smaller things too. We didn't really have Slovenia night in the AAC, and until Luka came around, and we have all the scarves and all that. Just the relationship with Slovenia alone. We're doing, the Mavs are doing broadcast, of Slovenia games every summer. Media, we're covering it like it's just the Mavericks. The Mavericks have, installed basketball courts back a few years ago in Slovenia. Now they just did that in Madrid on Monday. So there's so many smaller things that the Mavericks have embraced that part of Luka's heritage and kind of passion,
identity, basically.
Yeah, his identity is his relationships to kind of his past and how much he enjoys that. Even down to, this super small thing, but even down to when Luka steps up on the court to warm up before every single game, in-arena DJ has a playlist from Luka to play to play his music that he wants. And it's funny because sometimes there's away team guys out there playing and warming up and all this stuff, and Luka's rocking out to some of the music that he loves. So I think the Mavericks have gotten that right.
They've definitely gotten that right. This Real Madrid game is going to be awesome. I'm excited to see how Luka handles it. I'm excited to see how the other Mavericks around him sort of react to this, because this is like you said, a big just homecoming game for Luka, and it's going to be fun. I'm excited to see what they do. And I've got a bunch more things, what they've done right, what they've done wrong throughout his whole career. And coming up, I'm going to tell you the biggest thing that they've gotten wrong so far with Luka's career so far, and we'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Jase Medical. Jase Medical provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. And I've seen this in the comment section a lot. You can't just give people antibiotics because they'll use them for the wrong reasons. Well, you have to get You can get ongoing care from our physicians on any treatment-related questions, doctor created, doctor recommended. It's got the booklet in it that tells you how to use them and or what to use them for. And so you're taken care of when it comes to that. I know that that's the thing that people are concerned about, but you don't want to get caught unprepared with something either. If you have an infection, if you have something else that you need to deal with, Jase has the ongoing care from physicians, board certified physicians that you can get if you have questions about anything related to this. You just want to be able to be empowered to take care of yourself and your loved ones during unexpected things. Get 20% off life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout. JaseMedical.com, JASE Medical.com. Again, JaseMedical.com. Get one today.
My first shot, my first make.
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. If you want to support the show, text us, get text alerts from us, watch film with us. I've done a bunch of watchbacks where you can watch film and watch a quarter with me, and I'll point out stuff and I'll point out funny things and things that I enjoyed or things that I didn't like, things like that. Subscribe to our subtext, click the link in the description, text the number. All right, Isaac. The biggest thing the Mavericks have gotten wrong so far with Luka, to me, and you can disagree, and again, disagree in the comments or on Twitter if you... The biggest thing they've gotten wrong is they undervalue Jalen Brunson.
Wow.
I think losing Jalen Brunson, and you can say losing Jalen Brunson, but losing Jalen Brunson wasn't on the Mavericks. It was the Mavericks' fault in this is they undervalued him. Didn't give him
it's kind of on them, though, for losing him. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying losing him in the summer, they lost him. But undervaluing him early on, they could have been set up so well right now. Because with Jalen Brunson, not only lost a talent that they could not just one-to-one replace. They didn't just get cap space to replace him in that, when that happened. When they lost Jalen Brunson, they lost a budding star player that knew how to play with Luka and didn't have to go through this transition of the trying to figure out how to play with Luka, the odd, like, this isn't working, or the weird clutch play or whatever. Like, Brunson had figured out the rhythm to play with Luka, and it made him a really good player because he had to just turn it on a dime. Like, just, all right, you get the ball now, and now you got to go score. And so now he can just score at will, basically at any point in the game with some of the things he can do, and he was just made for that. And the Mavericks undervaluing him and then eventually losing him, I think, was the biggest thing they messed up on because it basically wasted an entire year last season.
Yeah, and you lost an asset for nothing. So, that's the super tough part about it. But once that deadline passed and they didn't sign him to the extension, and the trade deadline was gone, it was like, all right, well, I felt like we're all just like staring at the same outcome, even though that season and postseason was a lot of fun going to the Western Conference Finals and all of that. So I'm with you. It's on the list. I'm trying to, I have a couple things the Mavericks have gotten wrong with this. I'd probably say the graffiti jerseys were probably right beneath Brunson, putting Luka in a graffiti. But no, in all seriousness, and there's a part of this that we don't know the full story either because we're not inside the organization and all of that. But from the outside looking in, I think that there's some relationship stuff of people who've had relationships with Luka that I don't think has been the best decisions from the Mavericks angle. I mean, you start going down the line, and I'm going to forget some names here, but you start going down the line from losing Jamal Mosley, a guy that was super close with Luka, losing assistant coach Pro would warm up Luka all the time, had a good relationship for him. He was gone. Rick, kind of made that decision. Igor came in and was gone. Coach for Luka. The numerous dances with Goran Dragic of like, is he ever going to be a Maverick? And we know how much Luka loves, Dragic. There was that trade but then it didn't go through like years ago. And then we know all the off seasons that, they could have. Boban was here. Then Boban was gone. Super close relationship. Yeah. And then here recently, two that's just happened over the, the past few weeks that have came, out public now. But, Casey Smith's change in his role. There's a lot of, I think both the Tims have written about that. So you can just go read about that.
Your Tim's Cato and your Tim's McMahon.
Yeah. So for the public knowledge on that, you can go read that. And then, our friend Scott Tomlin, who's been in PR with the Mavericks for so long and
Been
has
on this podcast.
been on this pod, had some great episodes, with us and stuff. But, these are relationships that, when you see it in like a headline, it's not as sexy of a name as a star player next to Luka, that you're like, oh man, they lost this player and therefore that upset. But these guys have relationships with Luka that, Scott was there as soon as he gets drafted, and there's so much work from a PR angle of working on literally an everyday basis, especially not just with all the players, but with a star player, and helping them navigate the league and interviews and what you can say no to and like all that different stuff. But then Casey Smith, who's been with the team for so long.
Yeah.
And then when the Mavericks have sent, going back to the first segment about the Mavericks and Slovenia and all that, when they've sent people over, small groups of people or contingents over, Casey Smith was part of that, right? Like when they signed the super, huge contract extension, Casey Smith was a part of that. So having those relationships. So it feels like, once again, don't know the full story, but it feels like after 5 years, that's too many names to have on the list that to be ideal, that you're looking at saying with your star player, man, is this a CVS receipt of names that have been deeply connected to Luka?
Well, in all these things we're going to bring up, the right or the wrong, it's hard for us to know because Luka is not going to tell the media in public, yeah, I didn't like that they lost this guy, right? He's not going to even be fully truthful with how he feels on things. Also, he's a 24-year-old male, and many times as 24-year-old males, as I was one, we're not very clear on what our feelings are about many things. And so we have to assume some of these. Like, did Luka really, like, I have Dragic under, like, was it wrong? Because, like, yeah, Luka loved being with Dragic, but what if he didn't really like love being a teammate with him? And it's like, yeah, it's fine. We'll get him either way. What if he, I'm just saying, what if it wasn't so devastating to him as some people think that it might have been, that they didn't get Dragic the 2 or 3 times they tried to go after him. So, but you're right in that it's such a long list now of the guys or the people that have been close to Luka that are now not with the organization, are now in a weird spot like Casey Smith, or gone like Scott Tomlin or Jamal Mosley or Pro or whoever else, that now, okay, one of those, like a couple of those probably is not great that they're gone, that Luka got close to.
Yeah. And it's not, once again, this isn't, 1 + 1 = 2 of like, Scott taking an incredible job to work for Dirk Nowitzki. Yeah. Is it fair to just, say, oh, okay, well, it's the Mavs, Mavs got this wrong with all the relationships. So there's a lot of nuance in some of this and all that. It's just going back to what you just said. There's a longer list than probably what you would want of people who have relationships with Luka that are now not around Luka on a weekly basis.
Let's talk about the Casey Smith thing in a Maverick sense, though. Take a step back from Luka and all this. So Casey Smith was the head trainer for the Mavericks for a long time. Like, he was on the Mavericks bench, was traveling with the team and all that. Then he gets moved to like he got elevated to another role where he was like head of medical, head of all medical, like sports medicine and training and all that, like whatever his title was. It seemed like he moved up, still was traveling with the team. And then recently the story from Tim McMahon and Tim Cato was that he's now like been taken off the bench and also now not traveling with the team, and it wasn't his decision. That's what Tim McMahon said on the Hoop Collective podcast. And that's one of those stories where you go, oh, what's happening? Like, what is going on? Who is someone meddling in this situation? What is happening in this situation where someone like Casey Smith, who is very respected, works with Team USA, is respected across the league, a lot of people say he's one of the best trainers in the NBA, is now moving into a role, and it wasn't his decision. Originally I had thought it was his decision that he decided to step down. But when you learned that it wasn't, that makes me raise my eyebrows, perk my ears up, and say, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, and that's where, like, when you start going across all those names that I just listed, and I'm sure there's some that I forgot too, that some of them were a decision. Like, for them not to be there anymore. Some of them was kind of their choice and all of that. So now there's still people in the organization that he still has a good relationship with, right? Like I think if we sat there and said, I think one of them for me on the jury is still out thing is like this head coach situation that it feels like Jason Kidd is has a great relationship with Luka, and that matters a lot. He's went and visited him and everything. I think it's probably, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say it's safe to say that him and Luka are closer than him and Rick. And notice I didn't put Rick on that previous list.
I have Rick and Jason Kidd transition on one of my lists.
Yeah, so I want to say I don't want it to come across like, hey, Luka doesn't have any friends. Like there's still people. He has a great respect for Dirk Nowitzki, and there's still people there that he has good relationships and stuff with. It's just if we're looking at what are some things that you think the Mavericks could have done better, or that Mavericks might have gotten wrong in these first 5 years with Luka, it's the fact that list is probably a little too long for me to be comfortable.
Coming up, let's fill out the rest of this list. What have the Mavericks done right? What have they done wrong with Luka so far in his career? We'll talk about that.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
I don't always tell you guys the truth.
All right, Isaac, let's go through and we'll kind of rapid fire. Let's do a little faster on some of these. Some of the things that we've done right and wrong. We'll name the thing, and I'll say if it's right or wrong, and then we can decide.
Yeah.
All right, you kind of touched on it earlier. I think they got right the Jason Kidd as head coach and removing Rick Carlisle. That transition, I think they got right. I have Jason Kidd as coach under wrong so far because I'm not sure that Jason Kidd, the coach, is the best for the Mavericks. But I do think the transition from Carlisle to Kidd helped in that sense because Luka seemed like he was done with Rick Carlisle, and the Jason Kidd as a player's coach comes in. It feels like that's been a much better transition for Luka.
Yeah, I mean that was I have it. I don't have Jason Kidd as a wrong thing. I think the jury's still out. I don't have him on either one.
Sure.
But the move I did put on there, moving on from Rick, that was such a hard. Don't come at me either with the hey Rick chose and Rick won it. Okay, cool. If you want to do the whole like what technically happened.
Oh, that he left on his terms. Like he was going to be on the hot seat. He was going to be gone soon.
Yeah.
Soonish. It was going to happen.
But it's like that decision, the best coach in franchise history who won the only title and all of that. Like he's been there for a long time. Like that's not an easy decision. And I think the Mavericks got it right by not securing him into a long-term security and promising a ton of things. And it's like not picking him over Luka, and all of that. I think they did get that right of, hey, it was time. And we have a new superstar, and I think it's you can be our Avery.
Another thing I think they got right
Or
is the Kyrie trade, getting Kyrie, because I think that put a Band-Aid on some stuff because he was frustrated last year. Things were not going well. Brunson was gone. Team around him didn't look good. All of a sudden, you bring in Kyrie, and that just gives a little more excitement at the end. Then everything goes badly. The season ends poorly. They missed the postseason, and that was bad. But I think trading for Kyrie, I think, was a Band-Aid in this that I think gives Luka some excitement that he wants to play with a guy like that.
I think I have to, as confident as I am in the Kyrie take, or the Kyrie trade, I think I have to put that in the jury still out. I got to see more because I mean, where do you have the Porzingis trade? I
have so like getting the player, I think buys them time. And so I think that's in the right. So that's why I have the Kyrie trade in the right so far, right? Like in the long term, jury's still out. Sure. Literally it is. The Porzingis one, like the risk of it, like the idea of it was good, but then what actually happened wasn't. And so like, how do you put that on the Mavericks? Like trading for Porzingis and that being the wrong thing, right?
It's like the concept.
I have the one to Washington as the right because they went to the Western Conference Finals. Like it opened up everything else for the team. And they made the decision to move on from Porzingis, I think, at the right time.
You got to do the classic social media fandom thing. Porzingis led to Dinwiddie, that led to Kyrie. So
Dorian was undrafted, so they didn't pay anything for that. And then
so basically, it was Terrence Ross turned into
the tree. I like the tree thing of like We're doing that with the Dame trade now, with now Drew Holiday, and then eventually Malcolm Brogdon will be got this, who will be got that, who will be got that.
The only thing, like, I was a fan of the Porzingis swing because it's like, dude, you swing like Luka's so good. Like, I understood the swing. Like, you go ahead and swing for
Go for it.
the superstar sidekick who's young, and the pairing just didn't work. Didn't work anywhere, you know.
I mean, it worked to a point. They made the playoffs twice. Like, Porzingis was good in those playoffs. He was injured, and then the second year, the second year in the playoffs, it just kind of went downhill, and wasn't working. And that's when they decided to make the move at the right time.
I've heard some people make the argument of like, hey, they swung too early. They had a little bit more.
No, I'm not buying that.
Breathing room. So yeah, I think here's something else I say they got right too. And for some people that are going to say, dude, like Mavericks shouldn't even get credit for this, but I do think they should get some, is instantly believing in him as the like next star of the franchise.
I had this one, giving him the keys.
They gave him the keys so dang early, and it was quick. And I get it, how much you believed in Luka Doncic. We believed in him, but like, if you told me 5 years ago that he was going to be first team All NBA 4 of his first 5 years, I'd be like, no, like, I think he's gonna be good. I don't think that's gonna happen. But I think that, and not that Dennis was a cornerstone, but like moving on from, I mean, you just took Dennis Smith Jr. In 9th overall, a top 10 pick just the year before. You moved on from him, same position, so quick, because it's like you're giving the keys to Luka Doncic. So I think they did get that right, and they do deserve some credit of, hey, you're that good this early.
I have 2 other bonus ones that they got right. The Grant Williams trade, I think they got right on that one. I think Grant Williams is going to be really good for them. This is projecting going forward, but I think he's going to help Luka in a lot of ways. We brought up to him in our media day interview, hey, you can get some techs for Luka or get in his way, and Grant said he's going to have to get in my way to get some techs. Like, I think that relationship, that back and forth, is going to be really good. I think he's going to be the next, like, Dorian or whoever that like pair with Luka on the court that he like really gets along with.
Yeah. I love the Grant addition. I have one more like right thing too, by the way.
Yeah, and then I have the 2023 draft, getting Lively and Omax, and then it's like they're kind of it's a shallow restart, like a small restart of assets in the trade. Like, I think they did that right over the offseason.
Yeah, I would say if we're just talking about the relationship, Mavs and Luka, what they've gotten right in that relationship with Luka, I would say letting him do whatever he wants to on the court. Because
you think that's right?
I think it's right for the relationship with him. That's why I tried to word it that way. You're
not a fan of the tough love? You just let your kids do whatever they want?
No, we just talked about this tonight. But I mean, like, if you're like, Luka has to view that as a positive, right? Like, Luka has to view that as Mavericks, like, this was the right thing they did with him. The fact that, I mean, he's literally been able to do, like, run the system he wants, like, and it's produced. I'm not trying to say it in a negative thing, but it's not like he came into a system. He is the system. They built everything around him, and he still struggles with some things, right? Of like some, getting in shape stuff, some emotional stuff with, relationships with officials and stuff. So yeah.
Can you also agree though that the lack of offensive creativity over the years has been something they've gotten wrong? Because now they're one-dimensional and so reliant on Luka. Like, yes, they let him do what he wants, but now they're so reliant on it that I think it holds them back.
Well, now they got Kyrie, so that changes a little bit, but
it should.
Is it is that a positive for Luka or a positive for?
No, I'm saying you can. I think you can say the positive is allowing Luka handing Luka the keys and making him the number one guy and like giving him offensive freedom. Yes, but then the lack of offensive creativity in their scheme has led now to this team being one dimensional, relying on Luka, just Luka on ball all the time. And so I think that it can be a both. I had one more positive. We're going so positive now at the end of this. Everything they did for Dirk. Now, it was unintentional, but I think everything they did for Dirk at the end, where they celebrated Dirk, and rightly so. Not that they did any of this for Luka's benefit, but in doing so, in celebrating Dirk right and giving him all the things that, he needed, the statue, the street, the jersey, the everything, the last game, Luka was there for all of it. Like, he saw all of
Yeah.
it and saw what could be if you stay in a place like this, how they can celebrate you and, you know, accept you into the community and all that. I think that is the thing that they've done right, even if it was unintentional on Luka's part, like, you know, towards Luka, but they got that.
The further we get away from that, the further insane that's going to be. The fact that they
played together.
overlapped will be something that we talk about for years. I mean, literally decades. That wait, Luka and Dirk played together?
Yeah,
How?
like, imagine
What?
if like Wembanyama and Tim Duncan played together, you know, like,
Yeah.
it would be
Well,
like-
people's gonna see some pictures and they're like, cool Photoshop. Right.
or like Kobe and Magic Johnson.
Actually, it wasn't a Photoshop. Okay, now I'll end it on the
I got a couple more they got wrong, but
yeah, I'll end it on a wrong thing. And it's just a broader picture of like, if you haven't been to a finals yet, then you just haven't put a good enough roster around him. And I mean, you just gotta, I mean, there's a lot we've dissected roster moves and Brunson stuff, Valiant Brunson, different stuff over the past 5 years. But I feel like that's probably the thing that if you did the truth serum to the front office or to Cuban and say, hey, what have you gotten wrong over the past 5 years? I feel like they would say that. It's like, well, we haven't put a good enough roster around Luka to win an NBA championship. So there you go.
Not ever getting a center until this year. Like, many things they've done wrong. The Christian Wood trade I have under wrong, because not only did they take a risk and bring in Christian Wood, who Luka did not enjoy playing with, that it also sent Boban away. Like, it was like a double whammy on that part.
Crap, I forgot that was.
Yeah. So
I don't think he despised playing with him that much. But
well, I threw it in at the end. So you don't think he despised playing with him?
no comment.
He did.
Let's
he definitely didn't enjoy it.
He enjoyed having Boban around. Know that.
And then Boban was gone. So I'll throw that one in at the end. There you go. Let us know in the comment section. What have the Mavs done right? What have they done wrong when it comes to Luka and his career so far? Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.